My mother looked my 8-year-old daughter in the eye at Christmas dinner and said 4 words she thought no one would repeat. She's not really family. Have you ever watched someone dismiss a child, your child, like she was a stranger who wandered in from the cold? Like she didn't belong at a table she had sat at every year of her life? I sat very still. My husband sat very still. My daughter sat very still. Because we had been waiting for this moment for 2.5 years. We had been preparing for it. Quietly, carefully. The way you prepare for a deposition. Every document in order, every word rehearsed, every exit planned. What none of them knew, not my mother, not my aunt, not a single person at that Christmas table, was that my father had already answered her. From the grave. And the answer was sitting in a cedar box under my daughter's chair. Stay with me. Every second of what happened next matters. My name is Sarah Calloway. I am 37 years old. I am a former Army logistics officer, 2 deployments, 6 years active duty, now working as a federal contractor outside of Minneapolis. My husband is James. We have been married for 11 years. Our daughter is Lily. We brought Lily home from foster care when she was 9 months old. She had been placed with us as a foster placement first, a Tuesday in September, James holding her in the hospital parking lot in a second-hand car seat we had borrowed from our neighbors because we had gotten the call that morning. 48 hours later, she was in a crib in our spare room with a mobile James had assembled at 2 in the morning on the living room floor. She is 8 now. She has James's habit of tilting her head sideways when she is thinking hard. She has my stubbornness. She has my father's laugh, full, sudden, no warning, which is something I cannot explain and choose not to try. My father was Robert Calloway. He went by Bob. He was a carpenter, a fisherman, a man who built things slowly and built them to last. He owned a lake cabin in Pine County, 60 acres of white pine and birch on the north shore of Long Lake, a dock he had repaired every spring for 30 years, a workshop behind the cabin that smelled permanently of linseed oil and sawdust. He died in November 2 years ago. Heart failure. He had known it was coming for over a year before it took him. He had not told my mother. He had told me, one afternoon on that dock, the summer before he died, while the water moved slow and flat under a July sky. He had handed me a manila folder. He had handed me a sealed envelope. He had told me exactly what to do. And exactly when. My mother is Carol. She has lived in Millbrook, Minnesota, her whole life. She is the kind of woman who sends Christmas cards with matching stamps, who keeps the good china behind glass, who says the right thing at funerals and the wrong thing in kitchens when she thinks no one can hear. She has been calling Lily not really family since the week we brought her home. Not in front of me. Never directly to my face. In kitchens. In hallways. In the corners of holiday gatherings where she thought the words would dissolve before they reached anyone who mattered.
She was wrong about that.
James heard. My father heard. Lily heard. I heard. We documented every instance. 8 years of them. And then everything changed. The group text came on a Wednesday morning in early December. From Carol. Subject line, Christmas Eve dinner. It read, and I am quoting this from memory because James took a screenshot within 30 seconds and added it to the binder. Christmas at my place this year. Presents for the grandchildren. Emma and Tyler get something special. Lily is welcome too, of course. Of course. James read it from across the kitchen. He set his coffee down. He opened the hall closet and came back with a thick black binder. He placed it on the counter, without saying a word. He opened it to the back. He slipped the screenshot into the next plastic sleeve. He wrote the date in the corner with a Sharpie. That binder had 49 entries. 49 documented incidents across 8 years. Birthday parties where Lily had no place card. Holiday cards addressed to our beloved grandchildren. Emma, Tyler, and Sarah, no Lily, no James. A voicemail from Carol's sister Diane in 2020. Do we really have to include the foster one at Easter, Carol? My back. A Christmas 3 years ago where Emma received a charm bracelet and Tyler received a Lego set and Lily received a $5 gift card with a printed sticker on the front that said Happy Holidays, no name, no message. Page after page after page. James had built it quietly over 8 years. Receipts, screenshots, voice memos, notes written in the margins in his precise, small handwriting. He had built it because my father had asked him to. That Sunday night, I sat on the edge of Lily's bed. She had my father's old watch on her wrist, set to the wrong time on purpose because she liked it that way. She held it up in the lamplight and turned it slowly.
Mom, she said.
Is Grandpa's box still in the closet? I smoothed her hair. Still there. Is Christmas when we use it? If it needs to be.
She thought about that.
The lamp made yellow shapes on her blanket. Outside, the first December snow had started, soft and directionless. What if I'm scared? You can be scared. You can still do it. Grandpa was brave. Grandpa was scared plenty of times too. She looked at the watch. She turned it over. She put it on the nightstand. Okay, she said. I turned out the lamp. I stood in the doorway a long time before I went downstairs. Christmas Eve arrived gray and cold, the kind of cold that sits in your chest when you breathe. I laid my nicest dress out on the bed, the navy one I wore to my father's memorial. James wore his good suit and tie. Lily wore a red velvet dress with white tights and the small black shoes she had been saving for a special occasion since October. She looked like herself. She always looked exactly like herself, which was one of the things my father had loved most about her. The cedar box was already in the car, under her seat. My father had built it in his workshop the summer before he died. Cedar planks, hand-fitted corners, a leather strap with a brass buckle. His handwriting on the small tag tied to the latch. For Lily when the time comes. She had helped him sand the lid. She did not know what was inside. She knew it was hers. Carol's house was a white Victorian 4 blocks from the center of town. Holiday wreath on the door, white lights along the porch railing, every window lit warm from inside. The driveway was full when we pulled in. My sister Dana's SUV, my Uncle Richard's truck, Aunt Diane's old sedan with a cross hanging from the mirror. We sat in the car for a moment. James's hand rested on the gear shift. Ready, he said. Ready. Lily reached under the seat and touched the strap of the cedar box. She did not pick it up, just touched it. Leave it for now, I said. You'll know when. She nodded. Inside, the kitchen smelled like cloves and roasting meat and the particular sweetness of Carol's holiday pavlova, the one she had made every Christmas since 1994 because someone complimented it once, and she had never let the memory rest. Emma and Tyler were already at the counter with cookies. Carol had set out 2 small plates with their names on folded paper. There was no plate for Lily. James quietly took a 3rd plate from the cabinet.
He put cookies on it.
He set it next to mine. He nodded at Lily. She climbed onto the stool. I stood in the doorway. From the hall, I could hear Carol and Aunt Diane by the stove. Diane's voice. Carol, you don't have to fuss over Lily.
She's not really family.
You said it yourself. Carol laughed.
Once. Soft.
Linda, I'm only agreeing. Dana walked past with a casserole. She did not react. She had heard. The kitchen was the width of a hallway. James's jaw tightened. He did not turn. He picked up Lily's cookie plate and carried it back to her without a word. I felt something go very quiet in my chest. The way things go quiet before you walk into a room and say something you have been building toward for 8 years. Dinner was laid out the way my father used to lay it out. Green and gold table runner. 12 seats. The candles in the holders he had turned on his lathe in 1991, the wax worn thin at the bases. Carol had seated Emma on her right and Tyler on her left. At the far corner of the room, away from the main table, she had set up a small card table with a paper holiday plate and a juice box. For Lily, James picked up the folding chair. He carried it to the main table without asking permission. He set it between his seat and mine. He set the paper plate down in front of it. He pulled it out for Lily. Lily sits with us, he said. His voice was warm and level and left no room. Carol's mouth pressed thin. She said very brightly, "Of course. More room for the pavlova anyway." Dinner went the way it always went. Aunt Diane told a story from 1989 that no one needed to hear again. Uncle Richard talked about his truck. Dana asked me polite questions about work, none of them about Lily. Carol complimented her own brisket twice, and the pavlova once preemptively. Lily ate. She did not speak unless spoken to. She drank her water in small, careful sips. She kept one foot resting on the cedar box under her chair the way I had taught her so she could feel it the whole time. After the dishes were cleared, Carol stood and announced presents. Gold paper, red ribbon, matching tags in her handwriting. She carried the big ones first. For Emma, a brand new tablet, $1,000 retail, still in the sealed box. Emma made the sound children make. She held it over her head. For Tyler, a gaming console, the newest model. He yelled. Dana clapped. Carol walked to the side table. She picked up a small flat envelope. She brought it to where Lily was sitting between James and me. She handed it with both hands, like a ceremony. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Lily opened it. A drugstore Christmas card. Printed snowman. No money inside. No note. Just the card. Emma looked up from her tablet.
Mom.
Where's Lily's present? Dana quickly. Emma. Hush. The rules were never written down. Everyone at that table had been following them for 8 years without once asking why. Carol went back to the tree. She came back with a small velvet box. She knelt beside Emma's chair. She opened the box. Inside, a gold chain, a heart pendant, an engraved letter on the front.
E.
My grandmother Jones's necklace. The one Carol had kept in a safe deposit box for 20 years. This was Great-Grandma Jones's, Carol said. For my real granddaughter. The word real fell onto the tablecloth like something dropped. Emma touched the pendant. She looked at Lily. She was old enough to know that word mattered. She was not old enough to know quite how. Aunt Diane nodded. Joan would have wanted that. She was very particular about heirlooms. Lily looked at her hands in her lap. I looked at my daughter looking at her hands, and I felt the kind of pain that does not make a sound. The kind that sits behind your sternum and breathes. 8 years of cookie plates with no name on them. 8 years of cards addressed to everyone but her. 8 years of standing at attention while the people who were supposed to love her looked past her like she was something hung on the wrong hook. She was 8 years old. She had done nothing except exist. She had done nothing except love a grandfather who loved her back so completely that he had spent his last healthy summer making sure no one could take her inheritance. She looked at the candle in front of her. The flame leaned left, then right, then steadied. She put her hands flat on her lap. She did not cry. She never cried at this table. Neither did I. Let me take you somewhere else for a moment. Long Lake, Pine County, July, 2 years ago. The last summer my father was alive, though none of us knew it yet. He knew. He had known for months. It was a Tuesday afternoon. James and Lily were inside making blueberry pancakes. I could hear Lily laughing through the screen door, and the sound of it carried across the water like it had weight. My father was on the dock in his blue work shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, forearms the brown red of a man who has spent 40 years building things outdoors. He handed me a manila folder. Dad. It's a private trust. Irrevocable. I had an attorney in Duluth draft it. Your mother doesn't know him. He's mine. Why? He let his fishing line out a little. He squinted at the dock pylons like he was measuring something. Ivy. He always called me Ivy when he was about to say something permanent. I'm not making many more summers. My heart is failing. Congestive. I haven't told your mother. I won't. She'd make it about her. Dad. I see what she does to Lily. I have seen it for 8 years. The day you brought that little girl home, your mother sat in this kitchen and I heard her say, "She's not my real grandchild." I was standing in the hallway. She thought I was outside. I have never forgotten that sentence. Not one word of it. The lake moved slow under a white sky. A loon called from the far shore and got no answer. The cabin is in the trust now. The beneficiary is Lily Rose Calloway. There's a separate account, savings bonds, about $80,000, plus what the shop tools will bring when they're sold. It vests when Lily turns 8. I held the folder. I did not open it. I could hear Lily laughing through the screen door. She's my granddaughter in every sense that matters, my father said. I will not have her left empty-handed by your mother. Not on my watch. Not after. He handed me a second envelope. Cream paper. Sealed with a wax stamp he had made himself from a brass button in his shop. To be opened by Carol. In front of family. When Lily is ready. I built the box yesterday, he said. Cedar. In the workshop. Lily helped me sand the lid. She doesn't know what's inside. She knows it's hers. That was the moment I understood what my father had been doing that whole summer. The long days in the workshop. The careful conversations with the attorney in Duluth he had never mentioned. The quiet way he watched Lily at every dinner, every breakfast, every morning on that dock when she brought him coffee she had made herself. Too strong, and he drank every drop of it and told her it was perfect. He had been making sure. He was not going to be there to protect her. So he had built something that would. I drove back to Minneapolis with the folder in the trunk and the sealed letter in my coat pocket and something hard and clear forming in the center of my chest. Not anger. Something more useful than anger.
Certainty.
I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew exactly when. I knew exactly what I was going to say, and what I was not going to say, and what I was going to let my 8-year-old daughter say for herself. 3 weeks before Christmas, I sat on the edge of Lily's bed. I told her about the box. Not everything. Not the trust documents or the dollar amounts or the audit clause. I told her that Grandpa had made her something and that he had asked her to give it to Carol on the right night and that I would be right there and that all she had to do was walk to the head of the table and slide it across. What if she's mean? Lily asked. Then I will handle the rest. What if I drop it? Then you pick it up. Grandpa built it solid. She thought about this for a long time. The lamp made small yellow triangles on her wall. Outside, the first real snow of December was falling. Grandpa was brave, she said finally. He was scared plenty of times too. But he still did it. Every time. She nodded once, like something had been settled. Okay, she said. I'll do it. That was the moment I decided we were ready. The dessert was almost on the table. Apple pie. Glass cake stand. James had already opened his phone and pressed record on the voice memo app, face down between us, microphone toward Carol. We had planned this too. Carol stood. She tapped her wine glass. Before we get to the pie, she said, I just want to say something. The room quieted. Walter, Robert, my Robert, he always said family is blood. That's what he believed. Sophie, Tyler. You are my heart. You always will be. We don't do half measures here. We give what we have to the children we have. She raised her glass. Heather raised hers. Aunt Diane raised hers. Richard raised his. James did not raise his. I did not raise mine. Lily did not raise her water glass. She looked at her hands. Carol drank. She sat down. She looked satisfied. She began talking about the lake cabin, about the summer rental income, about fixing up the dock, about adding a screened porch. She had done, as James and I had calculated 3 months earlier with a financial advisor, approximately $94,000 in rental income from the cabin over the previous 2 years. The cabin she did not own. The cabin that had not been hers to rent since the day my father died. She was describing renovation plans, the screened porch, the dock repairs, the reviews that mentioned the mosquitoes, and she was doing it in front of the 8-year-old who owned it. James's hand found my knee under the table. He squeezed once. Not yet. The pie was on the table now. The cream was on the table. The candles burned low in my father's candle holders. I looked at Lily. She looked at me. I gave her the smallest possible nod. She set her fork down. She wiped her mouth on her napkin, the way James had taught her. She folded the napkin once and set it beside her plate. She slid down from her chair. She reached under and lifted the cedar box with both hands. It was heavier than she expected. She held it against her chest. The leather strap hung down. She walked. She walked the long way around the table. Past Dana. Past Richard. Past Aunt Diane. The wood floor creaked under her shoes with every step. Dana's fork stopped in midair. Lily did not answer. She kept walking. She stopped at the head of the table. She set the cedar box in front of Carol. She slid it the last 6 inches with both hands until the front edge touched Carol's plate. She kept her hands on the box for 1 moment. Then she let go. She put her hands at her sides. She tilted her chin up just a little. The fire in the fireplace popped. The candles flickered. Lily said, in a voice that was small and clear and left no room for misunderstanding. Grandma, Mom said to give you this if you ever ignored me again. Carol stared at the box, then at Lily, then at me. Aunt Diane laughed, the short, dismissive laugh she used when she did not know what else to do. Is this some kind of game?
It was not a game.
Carol's voice was very quiet. What is this? Lily did not answer. She had said her line. We had practiced it for 3 weeks. She stood at attention beside Carol's chair, hands at her sides, chin up, and she waited. Carol put her hand on the latch. Her hand was shaking. The brass latch clicked open. The lid creaked. The smell of cedar and linseed oil rose from the box. The exact smell of my father's workshop. The smell of 40 years of him building things that lasted. Carol's face went white. She recognized the smell. She recognized his handwriting on the brass tag. She recognized the photograph propped against the inside of the lid. My father in his blue work shirt, on the dock at Long Lake, with 2-year-old Lily on his lap, both of them grinning, Lily's hand on his face. She made a sound. Not a word.
Just a small, broken breath.
Walter, she said, like a question she already knew the answer to. Yes, I said. Open it. She read the trust documents slowly. Page 1. Page 2. The deed transfer on page 7. Long Lake Cabin, Pine County, transferred to the Calloway Family Trust, irrevocable, June 14th, 2 years ago. Beneficiary, Lily Rose Calloway. She turned to the audit clause. She turned to the total. She put the folder down. She picked up the sealed letter. She read the return inscription in my father's handwriting. She broke the seal. She unfolded the page. Her lips moved as she read. Her face went from white to something I did not have a word for. Not grief, exactly. Not anger. Something that looked, from across the table, like recognition, the particular expression of a person who has been seen clearly for the first time and does not like what they see. She could not read it aloud. I walked around the table. I took the letter from her hands. I read it in the measured voice I had learned to use in depositions and court proceedings, level, unhurried, 1 sentence per breath. He had written, I have watched you decide for 8 years that Lily was not yours. I watched you decide it in our kitchen. I heard what you said. I have never forgotten. She is my granddaughter in every sense that matters. I have put the cabin in trust for her. I have put my savings bonds in trust for her. I have put the proceeds from my tools in trust for her. If you are reading this, you have ignored her again. So now she has a home you cannot take from her. And it is not the one you are planning to monetize. The room was completely silent. Aunt Diane's hand went over her mouth. Dana stared at the table. Richard set down his fork and did not pick it up again. Emma watched. Carol screamed. It was not theatrics. It was the sound of a person who had been carrying a version of reality for 8 years and had just had it removed without warning. She covered her face. Her shoulders shook. I stood at my chair. I waited until the room was still again. And then I told my mother exactly what the audit clause meant. The dates, the rental income, the interest, the attorney's name, the certified notice arriving by mail the following week. I did not raise my voice.
I did not need to.
When it was over, James helped Lily into her coat. He picked up the cedar box. He put my father's letter in his inside pocket. I gave the table my final instructions, quietly, one person at a time. Carol,
Aunt Diane, Dana,
Richard. The brass bell on the front door rang as James held it open. The cold air came in. We walked out into the snow. In the car, Lily sat in the back seat with the cedar box on her lap, both hands flat on the lid. We drove out of Millbrook toward the highway. The street lights had halos from the snow. The wipers ticked. After 10 minutes, Lily said, Mom, can I bring my friend Anna to the cabin this summer? I laughed harder than I had laughed in months. You can bring whoever you want, I said. It's your cabin.
She thought about that.
It's our cabin, she said.
Yes, ours.
She put her cheek against the cedar lid and closed her eyes. By the time we reached the highway, she was asleep. James reached over and took my hand. We did not say anything for the rest of the drive. I have thought about that Christmas table every day since December. I have thought about what it cost my father to sit at that table for 8 years, watching, documenting nothing, saying little, and choose instead to do something permanent and quiet and irrevocable. He did not argue with Carol. He did not confront her. He did not issue ultimatums or beg her to change. He built a box. He trusted a child. He wrote a letter. And here is what I want to say to you directly, because I think some of you have been sitting at a table like that one. You cannot force someone to see a child they have decided not to see.
You cannot reason with that.
You cannot guilt it or love it or wait it out. Some people have decided, and they will keep deciding. No matter how patient you are, no matter how many Christmases you show up, no matter how many times you set a plate and carry a chair across the room. What you can do is what my father did. You build something that cannot be undone. You document what is real. You tell the truth on paper in your own handwriting, sealed with a button from your own workshop. You trust the child, your child, to carry what she is ready to carry. And you do not ask permission from the people who never gave you any. Family is not blood. Family is a chair you set at the table every single time, even when others pretend the chair was never there.
My father set that chair.
He set it in a cedar box, in a trust document, in a photograph of a doc, in a letter that arrived 2 years after he was gone. He saw her.
He always saw her.
And the people who tried to make her invisible, their names are not on that deed. Hers is. If you have ever sat at a table and watched someone treat your child like a stranger, watch the room go quiet, watch the plates get set for everyone except the one person who needed it most, drop one word in the comments. Just one word. Whatever you felt in that moment. I am reading every single one. If this story hit you somewhere real, hit that like button. It tells me these stories are worth telling. Subscribe, because next week I am sharing the part of the story I have not talked about yet. What happened 6 months later when Lily walked into that cabin for the first time as its owner, and what she said when she stepped onto the dock. I have been saving that moment. It is worth waiting for. Until then, remember what my father understood and spent 2 years quietly proving. The people who refuse to see your child are not protecting an heirloom. They are protecting a story about themselves. And that story, no matter how long it has been told, no matter how many holiday tables it has been told across, can be rewritten. One cedar box at a time. One irrevocable trust at a time. One 8-year-old standing at the head of the table, chin up, hands at her sides, saying in a voice that is small but absolutely clear, "Grandma, Mom said to give you this." That's the whole story. My father built it. My daughter delivered it. I just read it aloud.